All right, hello everyone. We're going to work through the second day of mixed review assignment for the test that's coming up on Wednesday, and we'll just work through each of the problems one by one so you can check your work. Okay, let's get right into it. So this first one is an intersection problem. Looks like this one is set up in a pretty easy way, but we'll work through it nevertheless. So let's see, the equation is y equals x plus 2 and x equals -3. Okay, so we need to give our answer as an ordered pair, and we already have our x coordinate, which we're just told is -3. So that's pretty easy. And then now we just have to find the y coordinate, which we can do through substitution. Okay, so if y is equal to x plus 2, we can substitute in x equals -3 in for that value here. Okay, and then we have y equals -3 plus 2. So y is equal to -1. Okay, and that's our ordered pair, -3, -1. So let's type that in. Let's get rid of that. Okay, -3, -1. Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, in this one we have a more tricky problem. It looks like this one will be easy to do by elimination, although you could do it by substitution as well. So let me just work it out on the side over here. We have 4x plus y equals 2. And then x minus y equals 3. Okay, so in this one, it looks like we can just directly add together the two equations as is, and we'll get the y's to drop out. Be sure to look for some of the harder problems from yesterday's assignment, and they'll probably be more representative of the test. But this one's pretty easy. All the work is pretty much set up right away for us to solve. So if we add together the two equations, we're going to get 5x, and then the y's just cancel out. It's equal to 5. Okay, so then if 5x is equal to 5, if we divide by 5 on both sides, x is going to be equal to 1. Okay, so that's part of the solution. Our ordered pair is going to be 1 comma something. So to figure out what y is going to be, we can just plug in 1 for the x in one of the equations. So let's see, in the other problem we had 4x plus y equals 2. Okay, if we replace the x with 1, then we'll get an equation that just involves y. Okay, so 4 times 1 is 4, 4 plus y is equal to 2. Now if we subtract 4 from both sides, we get that y is equal to -2. Okay, and that looks like our solution. We have 1 comma -2, so let's type that in. 1 comma -2. Okay, perfect. All right, moving on. So now this looks like a distance formula problem. What is the distance between the 2 points? Okay, and we even have a graph for it. So we could draw a right triangle in the problem. But at this stage late in the game, we might just be used to using the distance formula itself. So let me write the distance formula first. Distance formula says that d is equal to the square root of delta x squared plus delta y squared. Okay, so let's plug in these values. Our delta x is going to be found by subtracting 2 from 5. We're taking the difference of the x coordinates, and that gives us this horizontal line. So I'm going to write d is equal to the square root of, in parentheses, 5 minus 2 squared. Okay, and now delta y is going to be found by taking the difference of the y coordinates, and it's going to give us the length of this vertical line here. Okay, and that's going to be 8 minus 4. Okay, so what is 8 minus 4? That's just 4. So we put that into the distance formula and make sure to remember to square it. Okay, let's simplify this. D is equal to the square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. Okay, so d is going to be equal to the square root of 9 plus 16. D is equal to the square root of 25, and we know that that's just 5. So the distance that we found between these 2 points, which is basically the hypotenuse of this triangle, should be 5. We just had a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. And this is our answer. Okay, let's put in 5 for the answer. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so let's see. We can do this one by drawing a right triangle as well, or we can also use the distance formula. Let's use the distance formula. D is equal to the square root of delta x squared plus delta y squared. Okay, delta x squared is going to be the difference in these two coordinates, or 3 minus 2. So there's delta x, 3 minus 2 squared. And then delta y squared is the difference of these coordinates, 6 minus 4. And we remember to square that. All right, now let's simplify. D is equal to the square root of, let's see, 3 minus 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1, plus 6 minus 4 is 2, and squared is 4, because 2 squared is 4. Okay, so D is equal to the square root of 5. That should be our answer. Okay, let's type that in. So use the square root of 5. Perfect. Okay, moving on. What is the slope of the line that contains these 2 points, 15, 8 and 10, 7? Okay, this is a slope formula problem. So remember that slope is going to be equal to delta y over delta x. Okay, so delta y, let's just remember that these are those two values subtracted. So the slope will be equal to, in this case, 8 minus 7 divided by, and then delta x is going to be 15 minus 10. Okay, so we're going to get from that, looks like 1 over 5. Our slope is 1/5. Okay, good, so that ought to be the answer. Let's see, let's use this little fraction button. 1 over 5. Okay, and that was the correct answer. It didn't give us a verification because we have to turn off auto grade for that. Okay, looking at this next one, very similar type of problem. What is the slope of the line? We're given the two coordinates 10, 20 and 40, 30. Okay. So let's see, slope again is going to be equal to delta y over delta x. Also, I'm expecting a positive value for slope because you can see it's going upwards to the right, so that's positive slope. If we were going upwards to the left, it would be negative slope. All right, let's just do that slope formula again. So let me call this y2, and let's call this y1, and we'll call this one x2, and let's call this one x1. Okay, so now the slope should be y2 minus y1, or 30 minus 20, divided by x2 minus x1, or in this case 40 minus 10. Okay, and so we get 30 minus 20 is 10. 40 minus 30 is, 40 minus 10 is 30. So we have 10 over 30. But that's the same as 1 over 3. And we'll give our answer as the simplified fraction, 1/3. Okay, and let's put that in. 1 over 3. Oops, come on. 1 over 3. Okay, and that was the correct answer. Okay, what is the equation of a line that contains the point 0, 0, and 1, 1? Write your answer in slope-intercept form. Okay, so there are going to be a few questions about the equation of a line that passes through 2 points. And in these, you'll always have to give your answer in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form in general is y equals mx plus b. Okay, and the goal is to basically find the values for m, which stands for slope, and b, which stands for the y-intercept. So those are going to be replaced with actual numbers in the problem. Okay, so since m is the slope, okay, we could just use the slope formula for that. So it should be pretty easy to see that the slope is going to be 1 over 1 here. Okay, by the slope formula we do y2 minus y1, or 1 minus 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. Okay, and then x2 minus x1 is going to be 1 minus 0 again, which is 1. Okay, so in other words, the slope is 1, and we can replace that in the formula. Y equals 1 times x plus b. Okay, and now we have to find what the y-intercept is. We have to plug in for x, and we have to plug in for y using the values of the coordinates that were given. Oops, let me erase that. Okay, we could use either of these coordinate pairs, and we'll get the same b value, no matter which pair we use. So I guess it would be easier to use 0, 0, but let's use 1, 1 instead, just to see that we could do it if we wanted to. Okay, I'm going to substitute in 1 for y and 1 for x. Okay, and then I'm just going to rewrite the problem, rewriting b in there. Okay, so now the goal is to solve for b. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, and so now the equation reads 1 equals 1 plus b. So I can take away 1 from both sides, and I should have that b equals 0. Okay, now I just need to write the equation with all of these facts plugged in. I have y equals 1 times x plus 0. So it's better to just write that as y equals x. Okay, so this problem might have been so trivial or so easy that you might have even had trouble with it because it was so easy, but we have y equals x, so that's our answer. It would actually be better to do some of the harder problems to review and get a more accurate idea of what's going to be on the test. Okay, so that was correct. Okay, this is a good problem. This is slightly harder. It's the slope of the line through 2 points, and now we have some more general points to figure out. Okay, what is the equation of a line that contains the 2 points 2, negative 4 and 3, 6? Write your answer in slope-intercept form. Good, so I'll start by just writing slope-intercept form of a general equation, y equals mx plus b. My answer is going to look like this, only it's going to have m replaced with a number and b replaced with a number. So first we're going to find what the slope is using the slope formula. So let me write m, or slope, is equal to delta y over delta x. Okay, which is going to be equal to, let me call this y2, and let's call this y1. Okay, so it's going to be 6 minus negative 4. Okay, and let's call this x2, and let's call this one x1. Okay, so it's going to be 3 minus 2. Okay, so when we simplify all of that, we end up doing 6 plus 4 divided by 3 minus 2. Okay, 6 plus 4 is 10. And then 3 minus 2 is 1. So it looks like our slope is 10. Okay, so now we have to put that into the equation that we have so far. Y equals 10x plus b. So the only thing we have left to find is this b value. Okay, so to figure out that, we just plug in one of the coordinate pairs that we're given in for x and y. Then we'll have an equation just involving b that we can solve for b. And then we'll have our final answer ready to go. Okay, so let's do that. It doesn't really matter which coordinate pair I pick, but let's just pick one. I'm going to plug in these values, 3, 6 for x and y. Now, don't get them switched. Even though y comes first in the order in which we usually write the equation, remember that 3 is an x value, not a y value. So I'm going to plug in 6 for y, and then 3 for x, okay? And then I have plus b, which we'll solve for. Okay, so simplifying, we get 30 plus b is equal to 6. I can take away 30 from both sides. And then I have, let's see, what will that be? Negative 24 is equal to b. Okay, so what's the final form that I should write the equation in? I should write y equals, and then what did I find for the slope? It was 10. So y equals 10x. And then what did I find for b? It was negative 24, so we put in minus 24. So the final equation is y equals 10x minus 24. Okay, good. Now let's look at this next problem. It asks, what is the slope of a line perpendicular to negative 1/2 x? Okay, well this is a pretty easy problem so long as you remember the fact about the slopes of perpendicular lines. Lines that are perpendicular have their slopes such that they're the opposite reciprocals of each other. Or another way you might want to think about that is if you multiply the slopes together, they equal -1. So all we have to do is identify the slope of this line. It looks like it's -1/2, and then make the opposite of that number, so +1/2, and then take the reciprocal of that. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. Okay, that's the opposite reciprocal of -1/2. So my answer, if it's just asking for the slope, I guess I just write 2. Nice. Okay, moving on. What is the slope of a line that is parallel to y equals 4x plus 62/3? Okay, so the slope number is the coefficient of x, and that's going to be 4. So for parallel lines, we know that the slopes are always equal. So I guess for this problem, the answer is just 4. Good. That's the slope of any line which is parallel to that line. Okay, moving on. What is the equation of a line with the slope of 3, which passes through the point 39? Put your answer in slope-intercept form. Okay, let's write out this one. Okay, again, a good starting point is just to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form in the most general form. So write out y equals mx plus b, and then you need to fill in what these constants are going to be. So figure out what the m is going to be first, and then once you know that, you should be able to figure out what the b is going to be. Okay, so what is the m value, or the slope value? Well, we're actually told what it is. It has a slope of 3, so we just immediately plug that in. Now we can write y equals 3x plus b. Okay, so the only thing that remains to find is this b value. But we can figure that out since we know an x and a y value that we can plug in. Since it goes through the point 39, 3 comma 9 has to solve this equation. So I can put in 9 for y, and then I can put in 3 for x, since that's the x value of the coordinate pair. Okay, and then I put in plus b. Okay, so what is it going to be? 9 equals, well, 3 times 3 is also 9, plus b. Okay, so looks like b is just going to be 0, isn't it? Because if I take away 9 from both sides, I have that b is equal to 0. Okay, so what's the final equation? It's going to be y equals 3x plus 0, but we can just write y equals 3x. Okay, and that one was correct. Okay, this one we have to graph the equation 4x plus 6. Label at least 2 points on the graph. Make sure to connect the points. Okay, so just graph the line that we see here. Okay, hey, it's already in slope-intercept form, so this is perfectly easy to do. Let's figure out what's the slope number. It's going to be this 4. Actually, let me do this on this little screenshot. Okay, so the slope that we have is 4. The y-intercept that we have is 6. So we know that the graph of the line is going to cross the y-axis at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right here. That's the y-intercept, positive 6. Okay, so it has a slope of positive 4, meaning it goes up 4 for every 1 that it goes over to the right. So that's going to be another point on the line. Okay, and we could also work backwards to find some other points. If we go down 4, like so, and we go backwards 1, and if we go down 4, and we go backwards 1, those are some other points that lie along the line. Okay, now the line is going to pass through all of these points. Okay, so that's the graph of the equation y equals 4x plus 6. Let me erase some of my other work here. Okay, we only really need 2 points on the line, so I can just leave those 2. Okay, so you would graph it here, and I'll let you do that on your own. And that's it. Looks like we're done. Okay, thank you everyone for watching, and please let me know if you have any other questions.